he could feel that thing staring right back at him. Loud. Like it pierced the night air. It just the screeching like a banshee. Welcome to Tales at the Trailhead. Tonight we have a couple of interesting cryptid stories for you. And we'll get right into it. This first one is about a creature or cryptid named Mothman. Now, Mothman is primarily seen around West Virginia, although it has been seen all around the U.S. and some other parts of the world. It's an urban legend to some, a bad omen to few, and a fact to the many who have seen it. And this story comes from one of the third parts of that list. Aaron was a West Virginia native. He grew up around close by where Mothman was first seen, which is Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Avid outdoorsman. Only one in his family who really enjoyed the outdoors, which is kind of odd because, you know, they live in the beautiful West Virginia hills, the Appalachian mountain range. So wherever you go out there is absolutely stunning. But Aaron happened to be the only one that loved the outdoors. He would go hiking in the foothills. He would go hiking in the mountains, fishing in the rivers and streams that ran through. He had a bunch of small, secret, of course, fishing spots all over the place he would frequent on a bi- or tri-weekly basis. Couldn't get him inside. When he was growing up, even his mom would tell him to go inside and he would be punished by playing video games. If he was, if he's outside and he did something wrong, you got to get in here and watch TV for an hour. You're being punished. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that's kind of, the guy he was. And along his journeys in the hills and hollers of West Virginia, he was no stranger at all to seeing bizarre things, to hearing, animals or whatever that he couldn't explain. Throughout the day, at night, he heard all sorts of stuff like that. It became normal to him to hear a weird scream off in the distance. Be like, what was that? Or see something out of the corner of his eye that he couldn't place. This was normal to him. I guess spending enough time outdoors, that probably happened to anybody. You'd probably see a lot of weird stuff and eventually just, kind of become day-to-day life. That is until one day. He was out late fishing, and the fishing spot he was at was pretty secluded. You couldn't really get there by car. He had walked from his house to it, and it was a solid 2.5 to 3 mile hike. Easy. Which was nothing to him. He's always outside. Most of it was on a paved road. Who cares? 2 miles on a paved road, he can do that standing on his head. So he walked these 2 miles. And then there was a small bridge that ran over the river for cars. And then there was a smaller, shallow area where the crossing was, where he could kind of get off the main road. He'd walk down through this shallow area of water, and then the trail would pick up on the other side. He'd follow that for about another half mile, 3/4 mile into the forest, and it'd bring him out to this section of the river that was kind of like a pool of water, almost like a little runoff of the river. Very secluded. It was down in kind of a basin type area. So you'd come to it, and you'd walk down a little bit to get to the water to fish. Now from there, looking out, you could kind of see the bridge a little bit in the distance. The small bridge that the cars would pass over. You could kind of see that from, depending on where you're standing in this basin fishing, you can kind of get a glimpse of that. So Aaron is out there this night. It was in the fall, doing his thing. It was getting dark. It was about dusk. Doing his thing, casting out. He's getting some small fish, some really small bluegill, crappie, just regular freshwater fish. Not having too much luck. And then they quit biting. But he was in a hurry to not really go anywhere. Tomorrow was the weekend, and he wanted to just enjoy the evening. Even if he wasn't catching anything, just being outside, that was what he wanted to do. That was his unwind and relax time, just being outdoors, being out in nature. So he didn't care. He didn't care that he was catching anything. Just the motion of fishing just gave him the reason to be outside, gave him a purpose to be outside, because he can say, hey, I'm fishing, and not, I'm just sitting by this water like a weirdo. Which, if you want to sit by the water, I don't see anything wrong with that. But whatever. So he's sitting out there enjoying the night. Sun is setting. It's getting to be a little bit past dusk. While he's sitting there watching the bobber float in the water, he can see that bridge right out of the corner of his eye. And something doesn't seem quite right about that bridge. He doesn't know exactly what it is, because he's, like I said, a good distance away. He's sitting there just watching the bridge, trying to place what is out of order on this. What's not making sense? He's sitting there, he's looking at the bridge. And that's when he notices the bridge moves. And right when he sees the bridge move, he gets a bite on his fishing pole. So right away, he looks down. He sees just this movement really quick on the bridge, and he feels the bite. Looks down, reels up the fish. Another one to throw back. And he sits there, and he's like, did I just see that? Did I just see that bridge move? There's no cars going over it. There's no foot traffic on it that he knew of, but the bridge moved. The weirdest thing ever. And he's sitting there. He didn't cast back out yet, because now he's caught up with this mystery of the moving bridge. So he didn't cast back out. He's just sitting there, and he's watching this bridge. That's when he notices. He's focusing very intently on it. And what he notices made his blood run cold. the bridge doesn't look like it's moving. The bridge looks like it's breathing. He can see something moving in and out, like widening and narrowing. It looks like the bridge is yeah, for a lack of a better word, breathing. And he's completely floored by this. He is like, what? He's like clearing his eyes. What is going on? I didn't bring a six-pack out here with me or anything. What am I seeing? And he's just staring at it, just watching the bridge breathe. He's like, it's got to be something with the sunset. It's got to be the way the light is bouncing off the water. Like, what am I seeing? And he is just awestruck by this breathing bridge. And rightfully so, because that's not something that you see every day, or most of us see ever. But then something changes. He can't see a section of the bridge now, because the bridge is just a arch frame, and it's got the pillars that go up like this, the supporting beams to support it. And he sees a big spot between two of the supporting beams. Like a big black spot. That's weird. I don't know what that black spot is, but that's weird. He doesn't have to look at it for long, though, because what happens next is absolutely the last thing he'd expect. So he continues staring at this, and slowly he's looking at the bridge, and he sees this dark spot, almost a figure, start rising above the bridge, like rising to the top of it. And at first you think somebody's climbing the bridge. That's all it is. Somebody's climbing the bridge, some kids got up there, whatever. But with the distance he's at, people wouldn't be that big on the bridge. You wouldn't be able to see them as clearly as you see this thing on the bridge. So he immediately has that thought and then rejects it. And he's like, that's not a person. Could it be an eagle? Maybe, because they do have some bald eagles around his area. Could it be an eagle? No, eagle is smaller than a person. What is that? And he watches as this shape slowly gets bigger and taller on top of this bridge until he sees something standing on the bridge that looks like a man shape, but way bigger. In his mouth, he's just staring at this thing. His mouth was wide open, and rightfully so. He's staring at this thing, and he said he could feel that thing staring right back at him. And then the unthinkable happens. He watches as this thing spreads its wings across, and judging from the bridge's length, he said that wingspan was no less than 20 to 25 feet. He says, no less than that. I know what I saw. I did the calculations myself. So he sees this thing spread its wings. And not long after that, it takes off into flight. And he said it was fast. It was one of the fastest things he has ever seen that flew. He said it looked like it flapped its wings twice. And with the stroke of the second flap, it was gone. It went off into the trees. It was gone. Now, he didn't know what to think of this. Aaron just sat there. And after that, you see that and you sit there and you question yourself. You say, is that what I really saw? Anybody would do that. And that's what he did. He sat there, his fishing rod in one hand, mouth open, just, is that what I saw? Did I just see a creature take off? And he'd heard of Mothman before, but he'd kind of forgotten about it. It's just one of those things he wasn't really into. He didn't really pay much attention to, so he didn't immediately put two and two together. So after a while, he shakes it off. He's like, okay, that was weird. It was probably a bird that was much closer than I thought it was. So he starts making, excuses, reasons like, oh, it's this, it's that. It's this thing, it's another thing. Makes sense. I would do that if I saw that. Try and rationalize what I just saw, because it's a lot easier than being like, oh, that's a mythical creature that I just saw. So he leaves. It's dark. He walks back home. He's still trying to recount what exactly happened in his head the entire way home. He stops by the bridge because it's just, a couple minute walk out of his way. He walks across the bridge looking up to where this thing was. That's where he kind of gets an idea like, okay, this was not a person, it was not a bird. Like, this bridge is it's not a huge bridge, but it's big enough. And yeah, he's like, okay, whatever. Starts kind of losing interest in it in his head, and heads home. Well, a couple nights go by, and he decides to return out to his secret spot to go fishing. Walks back out there and sets up again. And by this point, he kind of forgot about what he saw. He told one of his friends, and his friend kind of was like, oh, it sounds like the Mothman. He reminded him of it. But their conversation wasn't really deep. He simply told Aaron, like, oh, it sounds like the Mothman. Just be careful when you're out there, because the Mothman usually appears when something bad is about to happen. Superstitions were a little beneath Aaron. So he's back out there. He's fishing again. He's having even worse luck than he did the other night. Well, he's kind of staring at the bridge, and he realizes it's about the same exact time as it was the other night when he was out there fishing. And he's fishing a little bit. He looks down, reels in his reel, picks his rod up, and there's no bait. Some fish got his bait, so he needs to put a new bait on. He picks up the hook. He's got it in his one hand. He's got the rod sitting right next to him, like kind of like propped up on the ground on his arm as he's holding it, trying to like get a worm out. And then very, very loudly, he hears just the screeching of tires. like somebody just slamming on their brakes. Loud. Like it pierced the night air. It just the screeching like a banshee, which for a second that's what he thought it was, until he was like, oh, that's the sound of car tires screeching. And he hears another set screeching, and then boom, the unmistakable sound of a very bad accident. He hears boom, just two vehicles smashing together. And then a third, brakes screeching, boom. And then a fourth, brakes screeching, a horn honking. And he looks and he suddenly identifies the source where this is all happening. And it's that bridge. And he looks at the bridge just as he sees a car's headlights whip around and the car flies off the bridge and goes into the water. Thankfully, the river is fairly shallow. Not that it helps for them, having a 15 to 20 foot drop from the river, or from the bridge into the river, and he's like, that's unreal. Like, he just saw this crazy accident, a 4-car accident unfold. He drops everything and he just starts booking it through the woods to get to try and help out. He wants to get to the scene as fast as he possibly can, see if anybody's okay, call the police, call whoever he needs to get there, make sure everybody's alive, or do first aid. Thankfully, he was CPR certified, first aid certified. He's just running through the woods like a madman, trying to get over to this bridge. And as he's about to reach the road, he feels something on the back of his neck. Like somebody is above him, just blowing air onto the back of his neck. A very, very odd feeling, because there's no wind out that night. It's completely still. Not a blade of grass was moving. And he touches his neck and he looks back to catch, out of the corner of his eye, a giant black wing just slip over the trees. Out of view. Just so quick. Just slips over the trees out of view. And he knew what it was. It was the same thing he saw the other night. And then what his friend told him came back to him instantly, of the Mothman only appears when something bad is about to happen. And that's when everything kind of comes together. He saw the Mothman a few nights later at the exact same time he saw this bad accident. And he stopped in his tracks for a second with a moment of realization, like, there's no way. You got to be kidding me. But then he focused again. He ran the rest of the way to that accident on the bridge. Thankfully, when he got there, there was more cars that were already stopped and helping out. And a lot of these people ended up going to the hospital. A lot of them were in critical condition, but thankfully, every single person that night survived, even the ones that fell into the water. I think he said the one guy broke his back from the fall, who was in the car that fell off the bridge. But thankfully, they all lived and they all did recover. Later on, though, they were out at dinner him and his family. And this was about a month after all this unfolded. And his parents were talking, like, you saw, like, somehow the accident got brought up. It was a small town, so, you know, this was a pretty big event. And the accident got brought up. And Aaron thought about something that he didn't think to ask until then. He didn't know why. He never thought about asking this, but he asked his mom, like, hey, do they know what caused that accident? Did they ever figure out what caused that accident? Because that night the bridge was clear. There's no like oil on it or slick spots. He didn't know. And his mom said, no, they never did. There was a rumor that the person in the first car on each lane saw a giant, what appeared to be man, standing in the middle of the road, blocking their field of view. And when they swerved to avoid it, it disappeared, causing the two cars to hit each other head on the bridge. Now, Aaron certainly didn't lean back and say, oh, so was it Mothman? But he knew. He knew what he saw, and he knew what the only, as funny of a word as it is, plausible, funny in this case, plausible reason for the accident was. That was two cars avoiding the Mothman standing on the bridge of a rural town in West Virginia. Let me know what you thought of the story, guys. Do you think the Mothman could have had something to do with this accident, or you think it might have just been an urban legend? Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. But I appreciate you guys coming out, having a listen. Make sure you hit that subscribe button before you leave. Like the video and share it with some friends or family if you enjoyed it. I'll be back soon with a new story. Here, Tales of the Trailhead. Thanks again, guys, and have a good night.